The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to the Academic Integrity, What is it and Why is it Important webinar. My name is Andrea Stanfield, and I will be your technical producer and moderator this evening. The webinar will be presented by Reese Jolch. Our goal is to identify the 5 fundamental values of academic integrity. We will discuss how these values are or are not embodied in everyday campus life. Additionally, you will learn ways to continue the conversation with your chapter as you work together to develop a strong program that promotes academic integrity. So before we get started with the presentation, let's take a moment to make sure that everyone is ready and familiar with the webinar control panel. On the right side of your screen, you will see the attendee control panel, and on the left is the webinar viewer window. This viewer window will display the presenter screen when the webinar begins. The control panel can be minimized or expanded by clicking on the horizontal double arrow button in the upper left corner. Minimizing the panel allows a better view of the presentation. Take a second to practice. Okay, there are a few features of the control panel that you should know about. First, be familiar with the Raise Your Hand button. This button is located along the left side of the control panel. It allows you to virtually raise your hand if you have a question or if you want to respond to a question being asked by the presenter. Click this button to raise your hand now, just to kind of test it out. Let's see. Reese, are you seeing any hands?
I see 1 hand, 2 hands.
Okay, I see some now. And then if you click again, it will lower your hand. Okay. Another important feature of the control panel is the question pane. To submit a question, type it into the question box. This could be questions related to the presentation, or if you have technical questions related to the GoToWebinar system. You may also be asked by the presenter to type your ideas or responses here as part of an exercise during the webinar. So let's practice by sending the name of your chapter to the questions pane now. Okay, I see beta kappa, beta mu, deltas. Okay, great. Questions may be submitted at any time, and we'll be monitoring them, and we'll try to respond as quickly as possible to answer those questions. Reese, were we going to talk about audio later, or talk about it, mention it now?
Oh, just the ability to raise your hand, and we'll and take you off of mute, and so that they can speak to the audience. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. I wasn't sure if you were going to talk about that, or if we should go ahead and mention it.
We can probably, mention it now. That if you have any, you can definitely raise your hand, and if you have any insights, please feel free to share it that way. So there you go.
Okay. All right. So during the webinar, you may be asked to respond to a polling question or survey. Please take the time to participate, as your input and ideas are valuable to the group, and they'll help drive the discussion. Be sure to stay attentive and interact as much as possible during this webinar. The quality of your experience depends on your attention and participation. Try to avoid the distractions of responding to email, checking Facebook, instant messaging, or working on other tasks at your computer. If you need to step away for a moment, do not close the GoToWebinar window, as you will be required to log in again if you want to rejoin the session. If you experience problems with the audio, one possible solution is to use the conference call number and listen to the presentation using your phone. click the Use Telephone option in the audio pane of your control panel to view the conference call number. The webinar is being recorded and the online archive will be available to view on the CAPA website in approximately 2 weeks. Does anyone have any technical problems or questions at this point? Okay, well then I'd like to go ahead and hand the virtual microphone over to Reese.
Thank you, Andrea. And welcome again, everyone, to tonight's webinar. We have a good number of people in the crowd, so this will make for a really great discussion. So as Andrea mentioned, we encourage all of you to actively participate as much as possible. Definitely raise your hand if you have a question or some insight to share, and Andrea will open up the microphone for you. Or simply type in your questions or comments in the questions pane, and we can share your thoughts in that way. Either way, we want to hear what you have to say because your opinions matter. And in fact, your input will make this webinar a complete success. So, as I'm sure you can tell, we're all really excited to discuss the topic of academic integrity with you this evening. And we hope that you will be inspired to continue this conversation with your chapters and, in turn, help inspire your members to do their part in building a community of academic integrity on your campus and within our organization. So let's begin. Academic integrity, what is it and why is it important? So beyond our sisterhood, another thing we all have in common is our pursuit of higher education. We are women of scholarship and academic excellence. We are important members of our academic community. As sorority women, we are also leaders on campus who understand the importance of values. Tonight, we will identify the 5 fundamental values of academic integrity, and we will discuss how these values are or are not embodied in everyday life. And additionally, we will learn ways to continue the conversation with your chapter as you work together to develop a strong program that promotes academic integrity. So I hope that we can all agree that every college or university is an environment rich in intellectual, technological, and information resources. It is where students and faculty members come together to pursue academic interests. All of us are part of the academic community because we share a common purpose, to learn from each other and to teach one another, both in our individual quest to mature as thinkers, scholars, researchers, as well as our collective effort to advance and refine the body of human knowledge. All of us benefit from the free exchange of ideas, theories, solutions, and interpretations. We test our own thoughts, informally among friends or in class, or more formally in papers and exams. We all profit by analyzing and evaluating the ideas of our classmates, friends, advisors, teachers. It's exciting to think we are indeed part of an intellectual community that is much greater than the current population of an individual campus. In fact, it stretches far beyond your fellow students, members of faculty, and administration. We are part of an intellectual community that transcends both time and space to embrace all contributors of human knowledge. We may find their theories in textbooks, or their words in books of poetry, or their thoughts in library volumes or journals, or indeed on the data on the web. So, through the work they've produced in times past or are producing now across the globe, they share with us their intellectual efforts, trusting that we'll respect their rights of intellectual ownership. As we strive to build on their work, all of us, from freshman to full professor, are obligated by the ethic of intellectual honesty to credit that work to its originator. And while we're on the topic, I definitely want to just point you all to the source that I received wonderful information from, and that's the Academic Integrity website at Princeton. It's a fabulous resource, and you can check it out. I have the website information at the end of this. So we also owe it to ourselves to create a body of work that is our own and to cultivate a sense of pride in our own creations, to understand that the pursuit of a degree is not simply a means to an end, but rather another important step in our journey of lifelong learning. We must do our part to contribute our best efforts to the pool of shared knowledge, because we will undoubtedly need use the support of others as we strive for excellence and build our individual portfolios of scholarship. And as we do that, we must credit those whose ideas were our foundation and entrust that others will do the same for our work. Okay, so we have a question to get the ball rolling. Speaking of academic integrity, would you ever cheat on a test? So Andrea, could you launch that poll?
Okay. Oh.
The question is, would you ever cheat on a test?
Okay, if you haven't voted, please go ahead. We're going to close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, and can you share those results with us, Andrea?
Do you see them?
I see them, but on my screen they're really small. On everyone else's screen, I'm sure it's big and able to see. But
oh, sorry. Okay, so we have 13% who said yes, and 88% who said no.
All right. So we're going to expand that question to include, what if you knew you wouldn't get caught? So would you ever cheat on a test if you knew you wouldn't get caught? So we're going to launch that question.
Okay. All right, I'm about to close the poll. And it says 14% said yes and 86% said no.
So it looks like there was a minor increase in the yes. So if you didn't get caught, then maybe you'd consider cheating on a test. Interesting. Okay, so we can close that. We'll get back to the webinar. Perfect. So what is academic integrity? So the Center for Academic Integrity defines academic integrity as a commitment, even in the face of adversity, to 5 fundamental values: honesty, trust, fairness, respect, and responsibility. From these values flow principles of behavior that enable academic communities to translate ideals into action. An academic community can flourish when its members are committed to the 5 fundamental values. The first one is honesty. Second one is trust, fairness, respect, and responsibility. So these 5 fundamental values together help establish a foundation of academic integrity. So speaking of honesty, do you consider yourself an honest person? We're going to go ahead and launch that poll right now.
There we go.
Awesome. So take a moment to think about it, and then go ahead and answer. Do you consider yourself an honest person?
Okay. All right, we've got just about everyone, so I'm about to close the poll. And 100% responded yes.
I love to see that. Okay. So 100% of us think that we are, or consider ourselves honest people. That's good stuff. Okay.
Heidi?
So, again, from the Center of Academic Integrity, an academic community of integrity is the quest for truth and knowledge by requiring intellectual and personal honesty in learning, teaching, research, and service. So honesty is the foundation of teaching, learning, research, and service, and the prerequisite for a full realization of trust, fairness, respect, and responsibility. Honesty begins with oneself and extends to others. In the quest for knowledge, student and faculty alike must be honest with themselves and with each other. whether in the classroom, laboratory, or in the library, or even on the playing field. For cultivating honesty lays the foundation for lifelong integrity, developing in each of us the courage and insight to make difficult choices and accept responsibility for actions and their consequences, even at a personal cost. So it's not always easy, but again, if we can cultivate honesty as the first value of academic integrity, then we can lay a proper path for our academic integrity community to flourish. And this is one of a really great quote that I found in Princeton University's Rights, Rules, and Responsibility, and also that was touched upon at the Center for Academic Integrity. And it is that academic freedom can flourish only in a community of scholars which recognizes that intellectual integrity, with its accompanying rights and responsibility, lies at the heart of its mission. Observing basic honesty in one's work, words, ideas, and actions is a principle to which all members of the community are required to subscribe. So, with that in mind and with an academic integrity mind at hand, we want you to think about what would you do in this situation. So bringing it back to everyday chapter life. So your little sis is really struggling in her Statistics 1A class. You're taking the same class and you easily finished the homework this morning. She, however, has spent 3 hours on her homework and she still hasn't finished the first question. The homework is due tomorrow. Of course it is. But it's 9 o'clock on Thursday night and everyone is getting ready to go out. It is an important night on campus and you guys all want to have fun together. But of course, going out without your little sis just will not be the same. So, what do you do? So let's consider, would you consider giving her the homework to copy? Take a minute to think about it.
All right, looks like almost everyone has voted, so 14% say yes and 86% say no.
Okay, I'd love to open this up for a little bit of discussion. For those of you who said that you would share your homework, are you interested in saying why you would share your homework with her? If you are, you can either raise your hand or you can perhaps type in some of your thoughts in the questions pane. Or for those of you who would, maybe you want to raise your hand. What would cause you not to share your homework? Of course, you can share your insight in the question as well. All right. Doesn't feel like people are flowing in to respond to that, which is totally okay. The end of this is to say what.
It looks like we do have a few.
Oh!
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Let's see. I'm going to try to send one of these to everyone to see. Can you see it anywhere? I have one that says she won't do well in the class if you just give her the answers to your homework. She will never understand it. Another says, I would try instead, Stephanie says, I would try instead to help her with problems, so instead of letting her copy, she would actually learn the material. And Catherine says, the biggest thing for me is that I am the vice president of, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with what AE is.
Vice President Academic Excellence.
Okay, so that's a new term, it looks like, for my chapter, and I feel that I have to set an example, and if I'm not encouraging the academic excellence, then who will? That's a good point.
Oh, I love that. That's all about modeling the way, which is huge. Yeah. I love it.
And I would find it not beneficial to that sister if I just let her copy my homework. This is from Jordan. However, I would offer to work through it with her. So it looks like pretty similar answers.
Absolutely.
Does anyone want to expand on this? Because we could hand over the mic if someone would like to say a little more.
Yeah, if you want to say something, please raise your hand, and Andrea will unmute you, and you can expand on it because these ideas are great. All right. Well, again, if you feel you have the burning desire to share your thoughts out loud, raise your hand anytime during the webinar, and you can do so. But we'll go ahead and just move then to the next one. But again, these are all great ideas. Again, the idea behind that is, as many of you stated, helping her with the homework by going through similar examples would help her learn, as opposed to just handing over your material to her. So, love it. So, the next value, as we discussed, is trust. And an academic community of integrity fosters a climate of mutual trust, encourages the free exchange of ideas, and enables all to reach their highest potential. It is true that people respond to consistent honesty with trust. Trust is also promoted by faculty who set clear guidelines for assignments and for evaluating student work, by students who prepare work that is honest and thoughtful, and by schools that set clear and consistent academic standards that support honest and impartial research. Only with trust can we believe in the research of others and move forward with the new work. Only with trust can we collaborate with individuals, sharing information and ideas without fear that our work will be stolen, our careers stunted, or our reputations diminished. And only with trust can our communities believe in the social value and meaning of an institution's scholarship and degrees. Again, one of my favorite sites is the Academic Integrity website at Princeton University. And one of the quotes that I adore is the following: "Trust is a central ethic of such an intellectual community in several respects. You should be able to trust that your ideas, no matter how new or unusual, will be respected and not ridiculed. To trust that your ideas will be seriously considered and evaluated. And to trust that you can express your own ideas without fear that someone else will take credit for them. Moreover, others need to be able to trust that your words, data, and ideas are your own. The right to intellectual ownership of original academic work is as important to the life of the university as the right to own personal possessions." So again, that idea of cultivating pride in your own body of work, taking the time it takes to develop your own thoughts and to express them, and again, using the support that you will need from previous bodies of work and that canon of knowledge, but again, giving credit where credit is due. In most situations, as long as you are able to credit and you have the okay of your faculty members that you're working with, it is okay to work and use others. But again, when it comes to that gray area of, oh, should I document it or not? Again, when in doubt, cite your resources. No one will fault you for oversighting resources. So again, we're going to make it back to interactive and see, what would you do? So what would you do? If you had access to a semester's worth of class, would you still go to class?
Okay, looks like we're getting most of the votes in. So I'm closing the poll. And 100% of the responses are yes, they would go to class.
Yay, I'm getting warm fuzzies hearing that response. Love it. Again, as tempting as it might be, attending to skip class, even if you have a semester's worth of notes, keep in mind that attending class is the single most important action that you can take to do well in a course. Also remember that you are paying a lot of money to be in the presence of these faculty members and hear what they have to say in their presentations and their lectures, and you have access to their scholarly minds and interpretation of the data they're giving to you. So don't take that lightly. Definitely attend class. Skipping class, even with old notes, means that you will miss a great deal of information that could be essential to your performance in the course. And there is no guarantee that what was important one semester will still be important, relevant, valid in the next semester. Even if the instructor is the same, he or she may decide to emphasize different points, discuss different theories. Again, ideally, things are growing and happening as we speak, so there might be nuances that were not available last semester that are very relevant to the course at this time. So don't ship yourself. Attend class. And also, listening to your professor and taking your own notes is a very important step in the process of learning. In fact, it helps move information from your short-term memory into your long-term memory when you take the time to synthesize the information the professor is giving you, translate it into your own words and thoughts, transcribe that into the form of notes, and then when you go back and review your own notes, not only do you have a body of work to pull from that will help you as you develop questions and answers for future examinations, but as I said before, it's moving that information from your short-term memory into long-term memory. So don't ship yourself. Go to class and take your own notes. But it sounds like all of you ladies already know that, so I'm preaching to the choir. But in case you find yourselves amongst a group of people who do not value that, maybe those are some ideas that will help you keep in mind. Okay, so we move to fairness. This value of fairness states that an academic community of integrity establishes clear standards, practices, and procedures, and expects fairness in the interaction of students, faculty, and administrators. Fair and accurate evaluation is essential in the education process. For students, important components of fairness are predictability, clear expectations, and a consistent and just response to dishonesty. Faculty members also have a right to expect fair treatment, not only from students, but from colleagues and their administration. All campus constituencies have a role in ensuring fairness, and a lapse by one member of the community does not excuse misconduct by another. Rationalizations such as everyone does it, or the curve was too high, or whatever, it just doesn't justify or excuse dishonesty. So share your thoughts with us. Would you say that students on your campus are treated fairly?
And you can type your thoughts in the question pane, or if you'd like, I can turn the mic on if you'd like to speak.
So again, share your thoughts if you'd like on whether or not students on your campus are treated fairly, and if you have any examples to share, like specific behaviors that indicate the presence or absence of fairness, please do share. And this is a great thing to discuss with your chapter specifically, or again, if you want to spearhead a roundtable with your Panhellenic group, or with your fraternal organization, or Greek organizations at large, or campus community at large. These are great thoughts to consider. Again, this comes straight from the Center for Academic Integrity. And
new responses.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Mackenzie says it depends on the attitude of faculty and staff. And Megan says that, yes, they are treated fairly.
Great. And again, absolutely, it definitely depends on the attitude of your faculty and staff, as well as the students. You know, everyone is different, everyone is human, and Again, opening up that dialogue so that there's a shared understanding of what fairness means to you at your campus is a great way to, again, establish those clear-cut guidelines. And again, taking back to your chapter and asking them to take a look at the academic integrity information that your campus provides, because all campuses have clear guidelines regarding academic integrity. So again, sticking to those guidelines and demanding that those guidelines be upheld is a great way to set that standard.
We also have another comment from Megan. She says that they are treated fairly because faculty and staff are available for office hours. They answer emails and set up study review sessions.
Oh, I love to hear that. Absolutely. So again, everyone has access to these faculty members. Now, whether or not people choose to access that is another thing. But again, having that open office hours that make the faculty member available for consultation definitely is a contributing factor to fairness. Great for bringing that up. Thank you so much. Anyone else wanted to share their thoughts before we move on? All right, we're going to go ahead and move to another question, another poll, and that is, so if you had a tutor for your writing intensive class, would you expect that tutor to correct your punctuation?
Okay, I'm about to close the poll. Looks like we're getting a few more votes in. Hang on. Okay, I'm closing the poll. It looks like 75% say yes, they would expect that, and 25% say no.
Okay, so before I move on to the next pane, tell me what made you decide to answer the question the way you did. If you feel comfortable, either raise your hand, share your thoughts, or type your answers in the questions pane so we can share it. So if you answered yes, what makes you feel like the answer is yes? And if you answered no, what went into your thought process to help you answer the question no? And this is not an easy question, I'll admit. Do we have anyone sharing their thoughts?
Yeah, here we have Stephanie says, a professor told me once that if the same resource is not available to all students, then it is not a fair resource to use unless all students have access to the tutor. It isn't quite fair for them to edit punctuation. So it sounds like she answered no in the poll. Megan says, I would be more concerned with whether or not they helped with content and development of ideas, but if I had an issue with punctuation and I knew the instructor's grades were based partially on correct punctuation, I would want the tutor to help. I expect tutors to be thorough.
That's important insight to share, absolutely. Both are. Are there other thoughts that wanted to be shared? Okay, so let's consider these following things. It's actually not your tutor's job to correct your punctuation. And actually, it is, of course, your tutor's first priority to address major concerns of your paper, as was addressed with one of the audience members. Of course, first and foremost, after the major concerns of the paper have been addressed, such as following the assignments, making sure that you have an exegesis, and that good organization and evidence has been provided, your tutor, as time permits, may point out examples of punctuation errors that you tend to make in your paper. Um, he or she may take the time to explain how to correct, she must take the time to explain how to correct the error. So her job is not to simply go and make all the changes for you so that you do not need to proofread anymore. In fact, it is her obligation as a tutor and her ethic responsibility to ensure that she explains these errors and help you understand and recognize the errors. So ideally, you will be able to correct them your future writing and not simply you just go through your paper and circle all of them and correct them and tell you how to correct them. Once you understand the concepts, you will recognize your typical errors, and you then can proofread your own paper with those errors in mind. I mean, we all have the little things that we forget regarding grammar and punctuation, and really having a tutor to explain why using a comma in this area is acceptable or why it's not acceptable, and understanding that concept, that is your tutor's responsibility. However, it is not the responsibility to go through and change it. And in fact, the part of the process of learning how to write well involves learning how to recognize and correct your own mistakes. So part of the writing process itself is also learning how to proofread your own work. So again, your tutor might be able to point to examples. Like let's say he or she were going through it with you and noticed that you kept making the same mistakes over and over again. They're not obligated. In fact, they're ethically obligated not to go through and correct all of the mistakes, but they should and hopes are pointing out that, man, you've made this mistake on every single page of this paper, and then talk with you about how to correct that. So again, that idea that your tutor needs to help you learn the process, not just correct it for you. And this would go for if you have in your academic excellence programs in your chapters, a proofreading system. It's not to say that that's not allowed, quote unquote, but again, understanding that you should be helping to teach the concepts that go behind punctuation and grammar, as opposed to going through and just having the person who's best at punctuation and grammar in your chapter go through everyone's paper and correct them, because you are, again, robbing yourself of learning the process of proofreading and how to recognize and correct your mistakes. So was there any other insight that anyone wanted to share? Or Andrea, I'm sure you have a wealth of knowledge to share on this if you wanted to say something extra.
I think you did a great job of explaining it, and as you were talking, I was also thinking about the responses to the question about the statistics and work and how this group really seems to get, the difference between helping someone and doing the work for them.
Absolutely. Again, there are tons and tons of analogies, allegories, and stories that relate to doing it for someone. Is far less appealing than teaching someone how to recognize and be able to eventually do it for themselves. And that, I hope, is why we're all here in higher education, is that idea of being able to learn to do things for ourselves and to be able to create a body of scholarship that is our own, that we can say without a shadow of a doubt, I did that, and that's great. So wonderful. So we'll move along to another fundamental value of academic integrity, and that's respect. And so again, the Center of Academic Integrity states that an academic community of integrity recognizes the participatory nature of the learning process, and honors and respects a wide range of opinions and ideas. So to be most rewarding, teaching and learning demand active engagement and mutual respect. Students and faculty must respect themselves and each other as individuals, not just a means to an end. They must also respect themselves and each other for extending their boundaries of knowledge, testing new skills, building upon success, and learning from failure. Students show respect by attending class, being on time, paying attention, listening to other points of view, being prepared, and contributing to discussions, meeting academic deadlines, and performing the best of their ability. Members of the faculty show respect by taking students' ideas seriously, providing a full and honest feedback on students' work, and valuing students' aspirations and goals, and recognize them as individuals. All must show respect for the work of others by acknowledging their intellectual depth through proper identification of sources. Part of respecting people involves fair and honest treatment. And all of this supports an environment of trust. So a general question to everyone is, do students, faculty, administrators demonstrate respect for one another on campus? And if so, in what ways? And if you'd like to share your thoughts, then you have the option of raising your hand, and Andrew will take you off of mute, and you can share it that way. Or, of course, you can type your thoughts into the questions pane. We'd love to hear from you. And I'm not seeing any questions or any responses. So we're just going to go ahead and move on. I successfully got my questions pane to be my friend, so I was able to look and see, and I didn't see anything. But if you do see something, Andrea, shout it out.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we're getting some comments. Is there a way for me to show these, or is reading them out loud okay?
The reading them out is the only way to show these. Or
that's what I was thinking. I just want to make sure it wasn't something strange with my Mac. Okay. Lauren says, I believe our faculty does. Every professor I've had so far has given each of his students a fair chance to excel in his class. And then Megan says, I think that making themselves available is the most important way they show respect.
Wonderful. Do you all feel that your faculty members provide full and honest feedback on your work as students? We could even do a hand raising, so raise your hands if you feel that your faculty members do a good job of providing full and honest feedback on your work as students. And I'd love to say that faculty members the whole world around, doing an excellent job, but it's not always the case, and it is difficult to be able to assess.
Yeah, it looks like a couple people feel like they do. We have 2 people.
Okay, well, good. So let's go ahead and move on to our next question, and that is, so take a moment to think about this. Everyone knows that Dr. Norton uses the same test every semester. This may or may not feel familiar to you on your campuses, but seriously, he never changes a single question. Helen knows a way to get a copy of this test, and she's wondering what she should do. So, if you can go ahead and do me a favor and in your questions pane, some thoughts about what you think Helen should do, or if you have just general thoughts about Dr. Norton and his test-giving practices, share those as well. But if you have specific thoughts on what you think Helen should do, share them, please. So do you think Helen should get a copy of the test? She knows place in a file cabinet that has these tests? Should she use that test? Any of those type of feelings might be popping up.
Okay. Jordan says if he were to hand out his tests each year without changing them, that would be his fault. But since Dr. Norton does not seem to hand back his test, it would be a violation of the honor code at CU, and the student could get kicked out immediately.
So, Jordan, you bring up a good point. Again, whether or not Dr. Norton hands back the test or not. So there's a question, is this something that this faculty member does at the end? He hands back all of the tests and has made an understanding that use these tests as future knowledge, future study guides. That is a definite possibility.
We actually have a few more comments here.
Oh, great.
Yeah, Megan says Helen should go to Dr. Norton's office hours. Maybe she already knows what will be on the test, but maybe she doesn't fully understand the question. She should go to him and ask for him to explain the concepts. Knowing that the correct answer is B doesn't mean you really understand the question. Good point. Again, going back to the idea of really learning the material versus just getting answers.
Absolutely.
Lauren says, I don't think she should get the test because, like the question with the statistics homework, she will never learn the material. This could end up hurting her in the final and in the class overall if she gets caught. And then Catherine says, I feel like it is lazy of Dr. Norton not to change his exams. At my school, we often use old tests, and the university offers a study file as a way to prepare for exam quickly. And he is eliminating this option. Oh, that's a really interesting point. Helen should not use a copy of the test, but it is unfair of the professor.
I mean, we bring up an immense amount of questions from this particular scenario. Again, that ethic and academic integrity of Dr. Norton as faculty member and the potential issue with Helen. It is not fair that Dr. Norton without recycles old tests, just like it would be unfair for a student to recycle their papers, unless, of course, Dr. Norton is explicitly sharing that this information is what I'm testing you on, and there are study members who clearly state, use this as a study guide. Come to my cram session, my study sessions, or my TA study sessions, and if you come there and you learn these facts from the study guide, you will know exact tests. And lo and behold, you get there on exam day, and much to your happy surprise, what you studied from that study guide is the exact same test. So this could potentially be that same concept. But the missing factor, as one of you pointed out, is we don't know this okay with Dr. Norton. So visiting his office hours and, asking for a study guide is not out of the question. And again, bringing that idea of, are these test questions used as samples in order for you to gain insights, or are you truly using these tests in order to get, A is the answer to 1, B is the answer to 2, F is the answer to 3, so on and so forth, and that whole idea of learning those concepts. But again, it's a little sticky area to say the least, because again, we do not know whether or not Dr. Norton authorizes this type of distribution of his information. So, so again, a lot of great insight that you shared. Thank you for sharing, everyone. Any other thoughts on the matter before we move on? Just out of curiosity, I want to ask one additional question, and that's the elusive test files. Does anyone want to broach the subject of test files? You want to share some information about them? Do you want to launch the poll about whether or not? Because one thing that, as far as academic integrity is concerned, is the elusive sorority test files. and the myths and realities that surround these test files. So,
looks like almost everyone has voted, so closing. %71% of respondents say their chapter does have test files, and that's 29% no.
Great. Thanks for sharing, everyone. So again, that idea of, again, we're not here to say you can't have test files, you can have test files. That's not a decision that's going to be made this evening on this call by any means, but it is something to take back to your chapters and discuss. What are you using? How are you using these test files? And what is your ethic responsibility as members of the academic community with these test files? So again,
Megan actually has an interesting comment here.
Ooh.
She might even expand on this. We used to have test files, but got rid of them several years ago. And now she says instead we have every member fill out cards of the professors they have. If anyone has a class with a professor that other members have had in the past, they can go talk to their sister who had that professor last year. That's an interesting approach.
That is definitely an interesting idea. Absolutely. Did you want to expand on that, Megan, or share a little bit more about if you know the motivation of purging those files and moving to the card system? And you can either do so by raising your hand and we can mic you, or of course we can just continue along with plugging into the questions pane, whatever you feel most comfortable with. But
okay, she's responding. Well, at our university, the grad assistants are the ones who write the tests, and they always change. Okay, that's interesting.
But again, that concept of, yes, I can definitely see the appeal of using previous tests as study questions, but ideally moving to that concept of learning the material and perhaps that idea of discussing with your chapter what you feel about test files and what that means, and opening, ideally, a dialogue with your campus at large on how to make those work.
We do have another comment, but I was also thinking, too, that when you go to a sister who's already had the class, that also gives her the opportunity to reinforce what's learned, which is particularly important in your junior and senior level classes where you're really into your major. So it actually benefits both members. Catherine says that CSU offers test files for the campus and has tests that you can purchase for studying through the university. Our chapter simply does the same thing for free by providing tests that other girls have taken in the past. They are used as a study aid only, as tests always change.
Fair enough. Thank you for sharing your answer. I appreciate that. So again, you can see that people, chapters have had the discussion of test files, and some have moved to changing it up a little bit. Definitely love the concept of providing cards. As Andrea pointed out, it does give you opportunity as well to discuss the curriculum with the members who had that class. And again, without supplying directly the answers, might give you some food for thought on developing your own answers to the questions, or again, simply showing you some great ideas for yourself. So any other ideas or questions or comments that you wanted to share about this particular subject? Again, thank you all for sharing your insight on this. So we're going to go ahead and move on, if my computer cooperates, to the fundamental value of responsibility. So an academic community of integrity upholds personal accountability and depends upon action in the face of wrongdoing. Every member of an academic community is responsible for upholding the integrity of scholarship and research. Shared responsibility distributes the power to affect change, helps overcome apathy, and stimulates personal investment in upholding academic integrity standards. Being responsible means taking action against wrongdoing, despite peer pressure, fear, loyalty, or compassion. At a minimum, individuals should take responsibility for their own honesty and should discourage and seek to prevent misconduct by others. And in fact, that's a huge concept to take away from this, is the responsibility of taking responsibility for your own honesty. And again, discouraging those, because we are in our organization, do move within a sphere of influence. So taking that responsibility to the next level and discouraging and ideally preventing misconduct by others. So if you can take the opportunity, if you do hear rumors of possible misconduct, to approach the person, let them know and help them identify possible misconduct, and ideally preventing the misconduct from reaching full fruition, that's the ideal. Because again, you don't want to have to move to the next levels of once it does occur. Most campuses have very swift and decisive consequences, and ideally, if we can again prevent those, that's the ideal. And again, as I said, discouraging and seeking prevent. And then we do not tolerate or ignore dishonesty on the part of others. That's not always easy. So again, despite peer pressure, that idea of not tolerating or ignoring dishonesty, and that idea that we had discussed before, that just because everyone else does it, quote unquote, does not justify that. So, are there any other questions or concerns regarding the 5 fundamental values of academic integrity? Again, by living these values, you have the ability to create that foundation of academic integrity that will help your campus community flourish. So again, by using honesty, trust, fairness, respect, and responsibility, and really living that in your everyday campus life, you'll be doing your part to ensure that academic integrity flourishes on your campus. And were there any other questions or concerns? Because otherwise we will move to the last portion of our wonderful seminar, which is top 10 ways to promote academic integrity, which I lifted wholesale from the Oklahoma State University, which, if memory serves me right, my research, they also lifted wholesale from a different university, but gave proper credit to with permission, so that's lovely. And the Oklahoma State website says to go to class. That might be an obvious one, but that people sometimes miss the importance of, but definitely go to class. All students are required to attend class regularly. This is an opportunity to learn from scholars who are experts in their field. In addition, instructors often make important announcements, including revised due dates, hints for exam preparations, and new assignments during class time. Something we've identified as well is getting it straight. So asking professors to clarify any vague instructions before you begin working on an assignment. Once you understand the parameters, it will be easier for you to plan your work and stay on schedule. So not only is this great advice for upholding academic integrity, but it's great advice as you begin to plan the semester's work. Look at your syllabus, ask your professors, and get it straight. What is it that they're going to be asking? What are the goals of this particular course? And go ahead and plan your semester accordingly so that hopefully you're not waiting till 15th week, dead week, to figure out, oh, wow, I don't know if I really understood that instruction for my final paper. It's probably not the time that your professor will want to hear from you, so now's that time. That third tip is planning ahead. Get yourself on the right track at the start of each semester by noting all your due dates for papers, assignments, exams on one calendar. Keep yourself on a consistent study schedule through the semester and try to keep ahead of your advanced planning allows you to put in the maximum effort with a minimum amount of stress. And this one again, planning ahead, it will definitely minimize the temptation of plagiarizing or using other sources. If you go ahead and plan ahead and give yourself a lot of advance notice, it will be less tempting to use other means if you give yourself the proper amount of time. Go ahead and know where to go for assistance. So familiarize yourself with campus resources available to assist you in studying, writing papers, and preparing for exams. Such resources include, again, your writing centers and your tutoring centers, librarians, your advisors, and of course your favorite faculty members. Follow instructions. Guidelines for completing assignments are carefully thought out by your instructors, so you are less likely to arouse suspicion about the originality of your work if you follow their instructions to the letter. This includes any instructions given during an exam. Do your own work. Unless given permission from your instructor, your best bet is to refuse assistance from friends on homework papers or exams. Again, just that idea of clarification as well, that get it straight with your faculty member what they consider collaboration. Collaboration is something that is sometimes difficult to define, so when in doubt, ask whether or not you are able to collaborate in order to come to an answer. And if you do use study groups, again, being very specific of what was your own thought and what other thoughts were generated by others. Sit apart from your friends during exams. So you and your friends will be prevented from exchanging glances or looking at one another's paper if you find seats at the opposite sides of the room. So whenever possible, leave several empty seats between you, yourself, and any other students, just so there is no doubt in anyone's mind whether or not you are cheating. Know whose words or ideas you're using. So when preparing a paper, take careful notes from the book, articles, website, or journals. And specifically note page numbers, authors' full names, and publication dates. Definitely use some sort of notation symbols, like if you use a quote, put a big Q by it, or whatever makes sense that you know you have quoted this directly from a source. Definitely avoid downloading information from internet sources directly into a file. Instead, again, take information down and note it properly. And make sure you label everything correctly. As you continue to prepare your paper, it is also helpful to put quotation marks around any notes you make, which are using sources, words, or ideas. And of course, use proper footnotes and quotation marks in your final paper, and cite your sources correctly according to whatever format your professor has requested. Because again, that's often different if you are in the field of psychology versus general literature, different applications of science. And be sure that you are using, again, that proper notation system that your faculty member notes. And also know your options. If your lab experiment goes sour, and if you have a family emergency, if you have 3 exams on the same day, come from an honest and trustful place and talk it over with your instructors right away. They're much more likely to offer solutions like possible extensions, incompletes, again, opportunities for makeups if you approach them far in advance of when the assignment is due. You are probably not going to earn any sympathy if you choose a dismissed or careless route to getting the work done, or if you simply wait to the very last minute to explain to them your woes. So try to give them as much advance notice as possible. And believe it or not, your faculty members are human beings, and if given the proper notice, they may be willing to work with you on that. And then think. So think about what you are doing at your university and why you enrolled in the particular course. Think about the value of your education, about the value of studying, reading, writing, and of course, the honesty in completing your own work. Okay. So do you have any other questions or concerns regarding academic integrity? I know we've covered a lot of information, and you all get very valuable by adding your insight to the discussion. So thank you again for that. But at this time, if you have any other questions or concerns, ideas that you would like to share, give it about a couple minutes for that. I'm not seeing any questions pop up.
No, it doesn't look like there are any.
Okay. Well, again, it's not like you can only ask for questions now. By any means, of course, if you would like to ask me a question, we'll pop up our information at the end. And of course, Andrea, you can ask questions for her as well. We both have worked in academic settings and have a lot of resources at our fingertips, and of course, are willing to assist you any way we can as you prepare for delivering this message to your chapters. So hopefully you have been inspired to continue this conversation with your chapters. Again, the best way is to open that dialogue regarding academic integrity. And it's not necessarily for you to define yes or no what constitutes that, but again, to familiarize yourself with your campus policies, and as well as have some important discussions with your chapter members of what it really means to have academic integrity. So, on that note, here's a little copy of the Academic Integrity Oath that's provided by the National Panel on Inference. And I completely suggest that you take a look at it. It's also available through our fraternity website and, of course, on the NPC website as well. But it's a wonderful way to especially end a academic integrity presentation that you have with your chapters, just so that you can all stand and make this promise that you can continue this again at your during your college days and beyond into your professional life. So, acknowledgments, again, hopefully I made it very clear to you all that I had borrowed some great resources from some wonderful, wonderful institutions, and those include the Center for Academic Integrity, the Oklahoma State University website on academic integrity, and of course the academic integrity publication that's made available through the Princeton website on academic integrity. So again, I encourage you to visit these websites. I accessed those about 2 weeks ago, and they are fantastic and very relevant. And then, of course, we couldn't do this without you, so thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you, too, Andrea, for your wonderful producer ways and your insight. You're valuable during this process, so thank you very much.
Okay,
and
well,
again,
oh, go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to give us our contact information. So here's our info, my email address, and of course Andrea's email address. Jot that down if you need it. You can also, of course, contact Karen Holmes if you have any questions or concerns.
Yeah, I'm going to send Karen's email through the chat feature.
Perfect.
So everyone, oh, you know what? That only went to us, so I'm not sure. Okay, hang on. This is Karen's email, and it looks like there'll be a survey after we close the webinar. Reese, is that correct?
That is correct, Andrea. So again, if you could all take a moment to as you log off, to go ahead and answer those surveys. It really helps us gather data regarding this particular webinar that the Education Committee uses. So if you could just take a moment to quickly answer those questions. I'm also sending over the chat feature our email and information. So if you have any questions or concerns, if you want a copy of this webinar, let us know. And as Andrew mentioned at the beginning, this webinar will be archived in about a week and a half on the CAPA website. In addition, you will also find a module that you can use with some different chapter activities, as well as some of these great tips that were mentioned. And so hopefully you will find this, as well as the other academic resources that we've had throughout the month, helpful to you, especially as we move into February, which I hope you all know is the month of the scholar. So again, get excited, get your chapters excited, and hopefully a few of these presentations will be applicable to you during that month. So thank you again, ladies, and have a great evening.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for everyone's attention. Good night.
Good night.